Hey, welcome back to Whole Garage. Thanks to all the men and women of uniform who have served or are currently serving. Alright, let's get right into it. Alright, so today it's been about a year since I was gifted this truck by my grandpa. Put about 8,000 miles on it. I'm gonna show you guys why I think most of us that own these trucks have had this, similar issues. I wanted to keep the factory stereo system, but it's just not working out. But I'll show you guys why. But anyway, here is basically everything I got to do the stereo. I spent less than $190 for all of this. To get anything like to replace the factory system from the salvage yard, it's like insane money. Just for like a module, it's like $100. So I'm just gonna go back with the CD player. We got this dash kit here. If you go to crutchfield.com and you type in your vehicle, it gives you everything you need. So at Crutchfield, they give you this black dash piece. I don't know why you can't select your interior color, but the only thing I had to get from Amazon, which that last item there I had to buy from Amazon, which is this. It's the red dash piece that you're gonna need if you have a red interior. But all these other items here I got from Crutchfield. It was a heck of a deal. I went with this JVC head unit, and then these kicker 4x6s that go in the dash. I think I'm just gonna leave the back speakers alone for now, but I think the front speakers the sun has gotten to them, so I'm just gonna go ahead and replace those. Also, when you type in your vehicle with Crutchfield, it gives you the factory wiring harness that plugs right in to your head unit. So, and it lists all the colors of wires on the back of here. So later when we build our wiring harness, I'm basically just going to be able to plug this right in and unplug it if I want to go back to the factory radio. Also, it comes with these speaker plugs. So right from Delco, from GM, those plugs that plug into the speakers, these will literally just plug right in to the new speakers. So it's pretty cool. And then these extra items that Crutchfield puts in are super cheap. Like this antenna extension that you're gonna need for this new head unit. But I've listed everything out. As you can see, a lot of these, like this wiring harness was like $3. The dash kit was $3. The speaker wiring harness was free. They literally just put it in the basket for free. So when you go on their website and you put your vehicle in, it's gonna add all these items that you need for whatever vehicle you have. But for this particular truck, which is 88 through 94, GM, GMC, Chevy, Suburban, this is like the kit that you need for that generation. So Crutchfield's done a great job putting this kit together. But anyway, overall, for all this, to get a whole new stereo system, $190.89. I mean, can't beat that. Even on Amazon, I couldn't buy all these pieces and save that much money. So I went ahead and, like I said, it came with this black dash piece. If your truck has black interior or a black dash, you won't have to buy this $16.99 piece here. But you can also, so if you do need to get one with color, when you go to Amazon, you can select the different colors. I think there's 4 different options, but anyway, overall, pretty awesome deal, I think. So I'm gonna get right into the tools and show you what all you're gonna need to install this. All right, so here we are. I got my coffee and then I got my new Crocs on. So can't do nothing without Crocs and coffee. So first off, I always recommend getting a Chilton's manual. It's gonna help you take apart the interior pieces and trim without breaking anything. It's gonna give you like little step-by-step instructions. Here I've got it marked here. So we're gonna be taking apart the radio, the factory dash and stuff. So it's also, if you look in here, it's got pictures and like suggestions and stuff like that. So I do recommend getting one of these. If you don't have one, it's not the end of the world, but you're gonna have to figure some stuff out on your own. So for tools, you're gonna need like a ratchet. Everything's metric pretty much from, I would say, 88 to now trucks or cars. So metric sockets, extension, 1/4 inch drive ratchet. This is a little wedge, and I'm gonna use it to, it's plastic, and I'm gonna use it to pry like the dash pieces and stuff so I don't scratch them. Get a universal. We'll probably have to get in some tight areas with that 1/4 inch drive. This is a T15 Torx screwdriver basically, but for your dash bezel, there's like 4 Torx screws that you're gonna have to get out, and they're T15 size, so get one of those. Also a good light. This is a soldering iron we're gonna use to build that new wiring harness. We're gonna put those together, and then also some heat shrink, wire strippers, and then a good knife. And then to finish it, we're gonna use this heat gun right here. Let me show you why we're gonna put a new stereo in. Okay, like I was saying, there's 3 components to these radios. So you have this piece, and then you have the equalizer / cassette deck, and then down here under the dash. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see under here, but there is a control data module up there. And I actually went to the salvage yard yesterday locally here in Wichita, and I found one of those control data modules, but they wanted like $100, and it had been outside. The windshield was busted in the truck, and they still wanted $100 for it and couldn't guarantee if it worked. So basically, like on these trucks, that's pretty much what makes the stereo go out. So I've read the forums, I've read some stuff online about them, and you can replace that, but pretty much each one of these pieces is like $100 or more, even used, you know, 34 years old. So you're kind of rolling the dice when you buy them on eBay. I've seen them on eBay. You, like I said, you can go source them at the salvage yard. But I mean, what the problem is the clock always resets, which is right here. It doesn't hold time. And then the equalizer works. However, when I turn this power button on right here, it's going to give you this awful squealing noise. So just be ready. I'll let you hear it so you'll know why I'm kind of sick of it, and then I'm just trying to do something about it, either fix the regular radio or put a new kit in. So I've chosen to put the new kit in, so but I wanted you guys to see before I take it out why. So here goes. And that's the sound that you get when you turn that on. So you saw all this, light up, and I think it would work if I got a good module down here, this piece down here. I've also noticed I'm not going to turn it back on, but pretty much like a lot of these buttons don't work on this either. So to get all 3 of these items on eBay, it's like $499. So I mean, if you're just loaded and you want to restore your truck back to the factory and you have the money to spend on 34-year-old radio components, I mean, go for it. But there's really not a good aftermarket setup for this, like right here. I mean, I think there's one, but it's basically like kind of a crappy, in my opinion, just I forget who makes it, but I'm not bashing it or anything, but like it's not really what I wanted. So I am going to go ahead and put the CD player in. But I wanted you guys to see why, because everybody's like, oh, leave it factory. Oh, you know, yeah, I want to, but I'm not going to spend almost $1,000, you know, by the time shipping, I get it on eBay, and then let's say that first set or one of those components is bad and I have to replace it again just to make all 3 of these work together. I could end up spending like $1,000 on this stereo that's almost 40 years old when I could just get the CD player that I want for like $200. So that's just kind of in a nutshell like why. But anyway, let's get to it. Your T15 Torx bit is for these 4 bolts right here. So you got one here, and then this one's busted, but it's still installed here. So let's get into it. So basically we're going to pull this bezel off. That pry tool I showed you, we're going to pry up on this panel, and then there's 2 little fingers up here that you kind of have to be careful with, or those will bust. Even though we're replacing this, still trying to keep it like, if I ever wanted to put the stuff back, I'm not going to cut any harnesses or anything like that. We're going to use those plugs that the kit came with. So technically, if I did find a good deal on a CDM, or if I wanted to keep these or sell them for as much money as they're asking for them, I could. But yeah, so try to, when you're taking your dash apart, I mean, remember these trucks are, you know, they're getting up there, and this plastic is brittle. So just take your time. So yeah, we're going to take this control head out, this equalizer / tape deck out, and then there's like, basically I think this is like the amplifier, and then down here's that data control module, which basically controls both of these units and makes them compatible with each other. So anyways, let's get right to it. Okay, so back to this Chilton's manual. It's basically telling you what I just told you, that there's 3 pieces to the radio, and it has you removing all 3 pieces. It also tells you to disconnect the negative battery terminal, and then before you plug anything back in to the radio, make sure that your speaker connections are connected, otherwise it could burn up one of your channels of your stereo. So later when we replace the speakers, this little diagram here, if you've never replaced speakers or, you know, done any dash stuff, basically like these books can help, you know, tell you where the screws are at, or kind of give you guidance on the location of them. Sometimes speakers are hidden in cars and you don't really know where they're at, so especially if they're not working. But yeah, these books are good. So, you know, you can be the best. Here's that CDM right here. You can be the best mechanic in the world, but I mean, just a little bit of advice. If you've never worked on this type of vehicle, it might keep you from pulling the whole dash out, or it might keep you from breaking something that, you know, you can't really replace. Because when I was at the salvage yard yesterday, like, all these interior pieces were gone. I mean, I know they're out there, but like a lot of this stuff is getting kind of hard to find. So just be careful when you're taking your dash and your interior pieces, because that's, as soon as you get in the truck, that's what everybody looks at. They're like, oh, that's a nice truck. But if you got a busted dash or you got something missing, then, you know, it might not be a nice truck anymore. So just a thought. Okay, so I forgot to mention that your radio antenna on these, they catch water and they corrode. And actually the coax cable originally on this truck, I don't have it, I threw it away, but anyway, this is not the original one. I got this one off of a 94 GMC, I believe it was, there in the wrecking yard, but I kind of inspected this one before I got it, but the original one here was just corroded, like super corroded, like there was rust all over it. This little rubber piece was actually gone. So you have to pull, to replace that, you have to pull these two little 7mm bolts. You unscrew your antenna first, and then you have this threaded piece here, and then you unscrew this little eyelet thing. It has a hole in it, and then, like I said, you take these two screws out here, and then to get to that, this little cover is typically in the fender right here, but I've taken that off, and you know, up goes up. But that little cutout right there is where your coax, your AM/FM antenna is going to come out of. But I would say that 9 times out of 10, to fix that radio, it's probably just this antenna, but I've already tried that. So unfortunately it didn't work for my truck. But if you read the forums and everybody talks about these trucks, this is a common problem. So like I said, I've replaced this. I did already try it, so it does work, but it didn't make my factory radio, you know, work or anything like that. It still had that really high-pitched squealing noise. But that antenna adapter that Crutchfield gave us is going to help us make this longer and straighter to plug into the aftermarket head unit. But the real GM one looks like this when you unplug it. So when we're under the dash and you don't see me unplug this, this is why, because I've already done it. But I'm gonna have to rerun that coax back through the dash and reroute it back to the aftermarket radio. But I didn't want to skip this part because I feel like it's important. So you may have to take your antenna off just like I did if yours is corroded. So I would suggest popping this little panel off and just inspecting it to see before you spend all that money. So anyways, I got this from the salvage yard as well. So, but this was relatively cheap. So anyways, let's get back in the interior. Alright, back in the interior. I did get my tools in here. Get like a little magnetic parts tray so you can put all your bolts like down here in the floorboard, because you're going to need that so you don't lose them. So I'm going to start by taking these Torx screws out. Just like I said, just be careful with these Torx heads. Okay, so I got this trim bezel out right here. These, just letting you know that the top of these are kind of spring loaded right here, and you kind of have to pull on them a little bit to get this top piece out. And then put your steering wheel, if you have tilt, try to put it all the way down. But you're just going to kind of work this out just gently. So anyways, I'm going to get this off of here and then I'll show you guys what it looks like under. Okay, so I had to put the truck all the way in low. If your truck's automatic, I had to put the gear shifter all the way down to 1 before it would release right here on the dash. So anyways, just another little hint right there for you. Alright, when you take this bezel off, just be careful, because your headlight switch right here, you can bust off this headlight piece right here. So just be real careful. It's only held on by like these 4 little screws, little bitty baby screws right here. So I noticed that those wires are pretty short, so you kind of have to grab a hold of the ends there where it has these little retaining clips right here. You have to press that to get them on, so just be careful with that. This one you have to pry up on to get off. The dimmer switch right here. That one you gotta pry up, and then this one you gotta like push down on the back to release that spring loaded, or that sprung plastic piece right there to release the grip on it. But anyway, you're not going to be able to pull that out, have enough room, unless you unplug these, unless you want to break this off. So anyways, so we have our, I would say, the main head unit here. This separating line right here, it should separate from the heater controls right here. So let's see, start pulling these screws out and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, so I did have to end up pulling this heater control out, air conditioning, heater control, climate control. So there's, you can see there's a screw way down there still that's holding this head unit in. So you will have to pull this heater control out just to get to that one screw. So anyways, moving on. We're up under the dash. We're basically right here by the brake pedal. But you can see these little wire harnesses plugged in here. This is the CDM. It's basically like the brain of the whole stereo. It's that component that I told you that I was gonna try to replace, but I think it's a lost cause. Anyways, let's get this one out. So that first screw is gonna be here, 7mm, and then there's a bracket. All right, so you can probably see it better now. So I got these two wire harnesses removed. One of them goes to the radio, and I think one goes to that cassette unit, like equalizer. But that bracket that we're gonna remove is that piece right there, that zinc coated piece, and it goes all the way right there by the gas pedal. So you can see that gas pedal rod that comes down the throttle, and you're just gonna go up from there. But yeah, it'll be that screw there, and then you see it's holding up that module, and then I believe this screw here. Anyways, that's our next journey, so let's get to it. Okay, so it's still under here with the CDM. For that bolt right there, that little stud with a nut on it right there by the, basically where those ports are that you plug in the wiring. You can see the wiring pins there. You're gonna need an 8mm socket on that one. I was able to get these two 7mm screws out, but, and then I think she's gonna come out. So anyways, there's that. So all right, so I got that main bracket out for that CDM. Here's that little nut right there. You know, why didn't you keep it factory? You wouldn't have to do all this. Well, maybe I want to do all this. All right, so this panel right here, also you're gonna have to remove that too. So that's two 7mm bolts. Hopefully I don't have to remove this brake controller that my grandpa put in. Kind of wanted to leave that alone, but may have to pull this off. You probably don't even have this on your rig. If you do, maybe you can just move it out of the way like that. But yeah, more stuff coming off. This lower, basically the lower column panel cover, it's gonna have to come off. There is one screw right here that's holding the CDM in. When I went to the salvage yard, like I said, all these interior pieces were gone, but I did see that CDM sitting in that other truck, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna grab it right quick. Maybe they'll only charge me like $20. They don't know what they have, you know, but they knew what they had. They tried to charge me $150 for it at first, and then, you know, then they're like, well, we'll give it to you for $100. But the windshield in the truck that I went to was busted out. You could tell that all this had gotten wet. So anyways, why didn't you leave it factory? Well, good luck finding those parts for under $1,000 for everything to make it work and keep it working. So for all the people that, you know, I love factory stuff, but sometimes you know when to put an aftermarket piece on. Like it just makes sense. So anyways, let's pull this off. We'll get the CDM out. This main unit should free up after that, and then we'll tackle that next, that cassette piece there with the equalizer. All right, so still under here, I did have to pull this brake controller for the trailer, stuff that my grandpa put in, but I mean, it was basically just screwed in with the interior screw with this bracket right here. So anyways, you can see the CDM a lot better right here. There you go. Okay, so then there's this screw right here, right there, that we got to pull out, and then this will come right out. We aren't going to cut any of these wires. The harnesses that we have, that we got from Crutchfield, everything's going to plug right back in. But you are going to have to take these wires and kind of like reshuffle them back up here where your head unit is going to go in. So anyways, going to pull this screw out here, drop this CDM. There's another wire, I believe, at the very top that we'll have to disconnect. And then we'll move on to that cassette area over there. Alright, so I pulled that last screw out. I pulled the antenna wire, which is right here. I already pulled that out, I think I told you. This is the infamous CDM. This is what goes bad. So there's a lot more plugs than I thought, but pretty sure all these still plug into the harness that we got. So, but yeah, there's people on eBay that restore these and they Bluetooth them and all that, and they go in here to these boxes and redo the motherboards and stuff like that, and then they charge you an arm and a leg. And alright, so here it is, the CDM. Some of them will say control data module on here. This one actually just says 89 ADSM. I don't know if that's the original part number or what, but the one I pulled from the salvage yesterday actually said CDM on it, but I don't know if the 89 model is different. There's people that have a business that restore these, like I was saying, but I mean, good on them, but for me, I don't want to mess with this anymore. So, but the reason you got to take these out is you need this wiring that goes in. You need that if you're going to retain your factory wire harness. You need this wiring, and then this is just extra weight unless you're actually using it. So I'm just going to leave it out. It's kind of turned into a heck of a thing, but even with those wires disconnected on the CDM, I still can't get this free. I've tried to move the harnesses, try to shove them up, but I still think there's one more that goes to here that's tied to this. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and then hopefully all this stuff will just kind of start pulling out now. So okay, so this tool here is working out perfect. This little wedge. When we put our floors in our house, we did some flooring work in our house, but I bought this laminate flooring kit, but it came with these little wedges or whatever. And just prying this bottom piece and running it down here, instead of using a screwdriver to scratch all that up, this little wedge, this little plastic wedge really helped. And then it's helping me, it's kind of helping me find where those little things are at. And then at the top, if it's fully released, you're gonna have two little tabs that will kind of walk down right here. So don't take this and lift it up, because it's gonna bust these tabs off right here. So what you want to do is just kind of wiggle it like that, and then you can see it start to come. It's starting to come down now. Oh, there it goes. See those two tabs? There's one, and then there's one here. So yeah, once you start being able to see those, then you know that you've got it loose. So, alright, I'm going to pull this out, and then I'm going to press on here. Oh, there we go. Now you got access to that equalizer. So you're going to reuse these vents. And then just be careful taking these little vents out. You're going to pop them in your new panel. There's also springs in here. These little springs. Just put them back the way they're installed. So if you have to, you take a picture of that. That's what gives you that tension on there, so they're not just flopping around. But yeah, take a picture of those little springs. It's kind of hard to see, but basically like just giving you tension on those vents. And then if you want to, now's a good time to clean these vents off. Stick them in a bucket with some soap and water or something. Let them soak for a little bit. Spray them off. Anyways, let's get going on taking this out. It looks like this little felt piece here, basically it just came off, but I'm just gonna re-glue that back. Probably won't show you guys that, but I'll probably just get like some Gorilla Glue or something and just kind of tack that back with just a tiny drop of glue, just so that when I do get the AC going again, I won't have any leaks in that vent. So just another little tip. Looks like there's only 2 screws holding this one in. We'll find out. Okay, so I took those 2 screws out, and that's all that holds this in. So now we have access to that last wire, and then we should be able to pull all 3 of these components out together. So, okay, so I was able to get it out. Here it is. It's really tempting to cut this wire because this harness, this is one of the ones you unplug from that CDM, but it goes all the way up under here, and then it's kind of hung up on this ashtray. So I just opened the ashtray up right there, and then I was able to wiggle it out, but I had to like really, you know, be delicate with it just so I didn't rip any, because there's a whole bunch of other wires under here I didn't want to mess with. So it is tempting to go ahead and just snip it off, but because you're not going to reuse this unless you're trying to put it back factory. So, or if you're trying to sell this component or something. But if you're just throwing it away, I guess you could snip that off, but I'm not going to. Yeah, now's a good time to come in here and get like a Q-tip or whatever and clean all those little spots out that you can't get to. Basically, we're just gonna get that head unit out, try to like clean this up, and then I'm gonna start the install. Alright, so since I got a new coax line, I'm not running it through the door, I just have it draped over the door right now. Skip this part if you have a good antenna wire that's not corroded, because you got to reroute. If you do replace it, you got to reroute it all the way back through the glove box right there, and then back to your new head unit. It's gonna plug into your new head unit with that extension piece. But the way the factory routes it, there's a wiring harness behind this glove box. The only reason I know that is because when I pulled this one out of the truck at the salvage yard, I had to gain access to it, and this was already all off, like I said. So it was really easy. But I'm going to be super careful not to bust this. But I'm going to go ahead and take this out. Hopefully I don't break anything. I would like to, you know, not damage any of this stuff. So pretty much like, I'm not going to film it, but I'm going to pull these 4 screws out. This little panel should pop off. There's a wiring harness right below here that has kind of like this plastic flip over wrap thing. It's like a casing or whatever, and then you just cautiously like rerun the wire through it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So if you're unfortunate like me and you do have to replace this antenna, you just pull this puke tank out. It's 2 13mm bolts. Just kind of put it to the side, but be careful because there's a line that hooks to that, and you can bust that plastic off, and then you have coolant leaking all in your garage like I do. But anyway, this is that little rubber grommet right here that kind of like from the factory, and then your coax will just, your new one So this is the panel that you open up, and then like I said, these two screws come out, and then you unscrew this and unscrew this little base eyelet thing, and then all that comes back out through the fender through this little panel, which I've already paneled back up because I already rerouted my wire. But basically when you get to this point, you just panel it back up with the end of it coming out of that, where that little notch is, and then you run it back through their factory grommet right here. So what I did was I put some WD-40 and coated this whole coaxial line with WD-40, and then wiped it with like a paper towel, and it slid in a lot easier. After it slides in, it's going to come out through the bottom right there by your blower motor. This glove box door is like a hinge, so it basically hinges and just sets up in there like that, but it has these little plastic retaining straps, so just be careful not to break those. But you basically pull this one little hinge bracket right here that hinges on with that one screw. That's all you have to do to take this door off, and then this side just literally just pops out, you know, like that little titty or whatever that hangs on right there. But I'm not gonna take these little limiting straps off. I'm gonna kind of let it like hang, and then there's this little seal right here. Now's a good time to kind of clean this probably. Especially like a little seal in there. So I'm just gonna set that up there for now. But yeah, like you've got, now you have access to reroute your coax wire through. So I'm gonna pull this out. I won't bore you guys with that, but I'm gonna reroute that coax wire where it originally routed through. Okay, so I did reroute the coax wire. This wasn't exactly how it was. It was down in here inside this metal thing, but I've got enough length here to where I think I'm just gonna set it like up here, and then I wrapped it around this wire here to kind of keep it up off the ground a little bit, or up off the floorboard. This metal thing, I don't know, it's probably a shielding or something, but I think I'm gonna roll the dice and just run it right up through here, because I've got plenty of length here. Plus we're gonna put that extension on there, so I think that'll be plenty. Also, there's another guy on YouTube that installed the radio, and he removed this bracket right here. So if you have to, go for it, but I think my stereo, my aftermarket one that I bought, the JVC, I think it'll go in here without this. And if it doesn't, I'll show me taking this out. So, alright, let's get into it. So if you did take apart the glove box to get to the coax wire, just put the 4 screws back in, just like I showed you. And then this bracket right here holds the whole hinge assembly basically, and then this end just pops in that panel right there. But everything should close up nicely. I did clean out all these little crevices and these air vents and stuff, so it took me a little extra time, but, and then I WD-40'd that spring right there and kind of cleaned up these hinges. Now's a good time to replace that bulb right there too, if your glove box light is out. Pretty easy access there. There's a switch right here, so if the whole switch is bad, now's a good time to replace it if you have it out. Make sure that it shuts nicely and everything when you're done. I'm going to go under the hood here and show you what I closed up. Alright, so I put the puke tank back on. It's these 13mm bolts, and then the back just kind of has this little plastic hook, and it hooks to the firewall. There's like a little bracket. Okay, so we have our 2 dash pieces. This is the original one, and like I said before, you have to take these vents apart with that spring. There's springs in there. And then there's these clips that you retain. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to use this scribe to do that with. I didn't list that in the intro. But yeah, like, we have to transfer those springs to those holes right there in the new piece, so the vents have the proper tension on them. And then also, so you've got these clips, and then you have this little bracket here. But you just want to retain those, put them back on the unit that you bought for your stereo that fits. So you got to be careful not to break anything. Okay, I was able to get these vents into the new dash panel bezel housing, and then I was able to put those clips back on. These clips right here, you got to be real careful because they'll break. Also, these springs right here are like flying objects, so wear safety glasses. Those little metal springs are under quite a bit of tension actually to keep the vent from flopping around in there. But I watched another video on YouTube, and they said that when you put them in this aftermarket, when you put the vents in this aftermarket dash bezel, they flop around, and they're kind of right. But this side seems to be okay, but this side right here is pretty janky. So I don't know, I might try to like shim this or something, that spring, but if that's as far as you want to take it, I mean, that's fine. But I think I'm gonna put something back here to like, I don't know, like tighten up the tension or something. Maybe put a washer right there on that little stud or something, just to make it a little bit tighter. So, but yeah, do what you want on that. But I think I'm gonna go the extra mile and put like a little spacer or washer or something right there to kind of tighten that hinge up right there. So, okay, so now comes the fun part. So go ahead and get your aftermarket stereo out of the box. Back to that bracket. I think I'm gonna leave it in there. I've test fitted this and I think it'll fit. Also, on the new bezel, it does stick out quite a bit. So the radio will actually stick out pretty far. So I think keeping that in there might be in the best interest. I was able to slide the new retaining sleeve, or whatever you want to call it, that comes with these radios. I slid it in that plastic piece already. Here's the new head unit. Leave this plastic cover, just leave that on there until you're done with your wiring and stuff. This particular stereo comes with a microphone right here, because it's Bluetooth. So just know that you have to plug that in. If you want to hook up an amplifier, plug in your RCA cables right here to like a subwoofer or something. But your main harness that we're fixing to build, that's the fun part. So this is the harness we got from Crutchfield specific for our vehicle. And then our factory radio harness is going to plug into these ends right here. Then I'm going to solder all these wires together in the correlation of the book for your aftermarket radio has the wire coloring and stuff. And then the harness that I got from Crutchfield also has the factory wiring colors. So you're basically going to like match all these wires up, and then when you're done, you're going to have a harness that plugs into your aftermarket stereo, and then this piece will plug right into your factory harness of your truck. So it's a little bit of work, but we're going to use that soldering iron, heat shrink, and then we're going to build like our own little harness out of one. Take two, make it one. But yeah, when you open this harness bag, just don't rip this, because this lists off all your colors of each wire, and then you're going to marry those two together to form one harness. If you don't want to do it that way, I mean, do it how you want to do it, but I'm going to try to do it like this. So anyways, before you slide the stereo in, make sure that you have the stuff that you want. So like if you want a factory amp, your antenna wire, the coax that we ran, is going to go right here, and then this is the extension for it. So we need that longer piece to go in there, specifically for this aftermarket unit. So, but yeah, don't forget to plug that stuff in before you install it in the dash. Before you build your harness, plug in the 3 factory plugs. There's 2 here and then 1 on this side. Make sure that it fits before you spend all that time putting this harness together with the CD player that you bought. And these plug in nice. Also, this particular stereo comes with a microphone. So before I put all this bezel and everything back together, I have it droop down, and then it actually like 3M tapes, and I'll probably just put it right there on the steering column. But you want to route that back here to the back of the radio. Also, your coax cable, make sure that you put your extension on there. And then if you think you're going to put an amp in, just go ahead and run your RCAs now, because it's a lot harder to get to you. You're going to have to pull all this back apart. So I'm going to run my remote wire, and then I've already ran these RCAs under here and then under this kick panel, and then I have this kick panel plate pulled up right here where I'm going to run my RCAs and my remote wire through here on that passenger side kick panel. You won't see any of the wires, but when I'm ready to put an amplifier in, I can just tap into those without having to pull all that. So next I'm going to show you how to build that harness. Before you mount your heater control back, put your new pocket in where your old head unit used to be. So remember, you got a screw here, 2 here, and then 1 under here, because if you install that first, you can't get that last screw in. So I'm still building the harness. It's going good. I am going to put this bezel back together right now, and then, like I said, attach that microphone right here out of the way of the shift column. So just know that this rotates when you move your shifter. So just leave enough slack in the wire so that when you go all the way down to low and then come back up to park, that you've got plenty of slack there. Okay, so I got the bezel back together. Like I said, you got to put the gear shifter down low to get it all back together, but that little pocket turned out pretty good. I am going to miss the buttons there though. I thought about just putting the old stereo back in and just leaving it unplugged, but just to kind of give it that I didn't mess with it vibe, But anyway, I put the little pocket thing, dash pocket or whatever, in. So still working on the harness here, but pretty much got that ready to go back in. We'll see. I'm just gonna build that harness, put it together like I said, and then the next time I might show you a little bit of that harness. But pretty much, like, once you get the harness done and then you plug those wires in, like, that just pops right in with those 2 screws, and then you just slide the deck down in that little sleeve, that metal sleeve, security sleeve or whatever it's called. And then it comes with those 2 little metal clips or whatever that you put in there if you need to ever pull it back out. So just read the directions on that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, she's back together. We're going to work some more on this harness, and then we're going to install the stereo. Figured I'd go ahead and put these front speakers in first. before I put the radio together. So these, you're gonna use your little plastic wedge again, but you'll like pry up from like right here and then lift it out like that. I did break this little clip right here, so I'll have to glue that back together, but that little metal clip, retainer clip, this one's okay, but well, I guess it goes like that, but I'll have to glue that back. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put those kicker 4x6s in here. It's just 4 7mm screws there, and then I'm gonna use that plug-in that Crutchfield supplied there. Got that factory speaker out, and then you just unplug it right there. Take note of your speaker wire colors. So right front is dark green, light green, and then there's usually a positive and negative. Sometimes there's not on these factory ones, but just know that those wiring kits and stuff could be wrong. So you know that your dark green and your light green are your front right speaker wires. So pretty much the same for all 4 corners or however many speakers you have. There's usually all different colors of wires, so just keep note of that. Sometimes you don't get those instructions with your factory or your aftermarket radios, so yeah, it's a good way to see if you don't want to pull the whole dash out or whatever, or the door panels or wherever your speakers are at. If you're doing them, just take note of the colors. Okay, so we got the new speakers open. It's gonna come with some little pigtails and stuff, but this harness that we got from Crutchfield plugs right in, so there's no cuts, and you literally can't mess this up. I mean, that's pretty awesome. To me, that's worth it. Not getting stuff on Amazon. Go to Crutchfields.com's website for car audio stuff. It's a lot better. Get your little stuff on Amazon or whatever, but if it's specific to your car, and it's audio equipment, I would recommend going through Crutchfield. Also, the speakers that they recommend, the magnets are going to fit in the dash. So yeah, you can get all this stuff on Amazon, but I mean, they literally put these harnesses in here for like $2, $1, whatever I showed you. It was like cheap. So, but I mean, there's no cleaner install than just plugging it in, and then these just plug right into the speaker. Just save yourself the headache and just go through Crutchfield's website. Okay, so pretty much the same song and dance on this side. For this speaker here, we're going to use this tool here and then flip that up from this position, and then these little tabs are kind of stuck down in there like that, and then you just kind of like pull out like that. Yeah, there's that speaker. Here's that other harness that Crutchfield gave us. So I'm going to plug that in and be done with the speaker install. Alright, so the harness is built. Some of the wires aren't, some of them are longer than the others. I noticed the speaker wires are shorter. If you want to, the best thing is probably to cut all the wires to the same length for both harnesses. It's kind of what I did here, but it's still not like amazingly perfect, but all the connections are soldered, and then I have this heat shrink on here. Okay, so I plugged, here's our harness that we made. I did put some zip ties right here just to kind of like keep it from being like a rat's nest. I've got the remote wire ran with my RCAs. I'm just gonna run it over there by that blower motor, and then run it inside that kick panel, and then below that steel plate right there. So, alright, so I'm gonna put these wires in. This is the end that goes into the aftermarket stereo, and then I'm gonna feed it into that vent panel through the back, And then I'll slide that CD player in there. Alright, here it is. Got it installed. Let's turn this key on. Pretty sure you gotta hold the power button. There we go. Looks like it's
and mucus, but it works. Yes, it does.
Looks like it's working.
Like you're drinking the Easter egg coloring stuff.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. Hope you liked the install.
Attention, Wichita. Rusty at Ford is now hiring sales.
Hope you like this install. Let me know if you have any advice for me. If you got a better way to do something, or let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, we went from stock to CD players. Aftermarket CD player here. Got some new speakers up front, so pretty excited to get it. The radio didn't work, as you know, and that little pocket turned out pretty good. I just put my wallet and sunglasses in there. But yeah, thanks for watching my channel. Hope you guys like this one. I'll see y'all in the next one.